In the world of symbols and heritage, sometimes silence carries more weight than 1,000 words. We are witnessing a historical split, not just within a family, but within the very concept of power in this new era. On one side is the dazzling light of the media, where personal stories are woven into focal points. On the other is the stillness of London's ancient walls, where chess pieces are being set for a future longer than any television contract. Numerous observers suggest that Prince William is exhibiting the demeanor of a chief architect of the future. Instead of reacting to the onslaught of public opinion, he chooses to strengthen the foundations of the institution. The question now is no longer, will it happen, but when is the optimal time? Redefining titles is not merely an individual act, but a symbolic restructuring. In an era of transparency, possessing a title is no longer seen as an immutable privilege, but a responsibility tied to genuine dedication. Across the ocean, we see a familiar motif, the clamor of press releases and the relentless pursuit of prominence in the global news flow. However, there is a systemic truth that few mention titles within a dynasty are not mere ornaments to be possessed. They are the very breath of tradition. When direct blood ties are no longer the sole basis, the distinction between heir and companion becomes more pronounced than ever in ancient ceremonial rules. While the world is preoccupied with analyzing dramatic interviews and memoirs in London, a new blueprint for the monarchy is emerging. These are not petty debates. This is the transformation of an institution to adapt to the 21st century. With a single signature, the structure of a millennia-old heritage can be rewritten, discarding elements no longer relevant to safeguard the overall existence. Will individual freedom or family duty prevail on this chessboard of power? The answer lies in patience, for in the game of dynasties, the winner is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the last one standing when the spotlight fades. While the outside world is awash in sensational headlines behind the solid oak doors of Kensington and Clarence House, a different script is being rewritten. No cameras, no bombastic pronouncements, just strategic records and quiet discussions that have dragged on for years. To understand what is truly happening, we must look into the intellectual divide between the two generations of top leadership, the current crown holder and his successor. King Charles, as a conciliatory father and monarch, always believed in second chances. His philosophy was one of tolerance, an attempt to mend rifts with afternoon tea and patience. He saw the prodigal sons, but Prince William saw the systemic risks. William arrived at a far more stoic and realistic conclusion. Institutions cannot exist based on emotions. In the eyes of the successor, protecting the millennia-old heritage is the ultimate priority, transcending all personal feelings. What is being quietly built is not a plan for revenge, but rather a self-defense mechanism. William understood that when a name tied to traditional values is used as a commercial tool, from podcasts to book covers, its sanctity is eroded. The precedent was there. What had happened to previous members of the family was proof of the system's resolve. This wasn't revenge, but a revolution, necessary surgery to ensure the purity of future leadership. There was a pivotal moment in those private conversations where William bluntly pointed out that ill-timed benevolence could become a vulnerability for widespread instability. He believed that to protect the monarchy from media attacks and destructive revelations, they could not continue to remain silent in the old ways. This contrast created tremendous pressure on all parties involved. Across the ocean, resistance was understandable, for when symbols of power are shaken, The structure of personal influence crumbles with them, The history of monarchies has always been a process of purification for survival. William is playing a game of chess where he has already moved many steps ahead. This is a battle between one side that wants to preserve unity through affection and the other that wants to maintain dignity through discipline. Ultimately, time will tell, can an institution survive if it does not dare to let go of the parts that are no longer compatible. We are drawing closer to the point where the line between family unity and the survival of an institution becomes clearer than ever. King Charles, with the heart of a father, sees the cracks that need to be filled with kindness. He sees individuals' memories and hopes for reconciliation. But on the opposite side, Prince William sees a system error. In the successor's thinking, this is not a matter of emotion, but a model being exploited, eroding the foundations built over thousands of years of history. Construction workers. Construction. William isn't waiting for the future. He's shaping it right now. Behind the velvet curtains lies a strategic council, not a group of fleeting crisis management experts, but constitutional historians and masters of political science. They are the ones who understand the concept to its core. Authority. Their mission to draft a comprehensive framework to protect the monarchy from the upheavals of the new era. This wasn't an immediate response to a documentary or a memoir, but a complete overhaul of the British royal operating system. A new charter is gradually emerging with non-negotiable rules. William wants to eliminate the ambiguity that has existed for too long. He aims for a system where titles and privileges are not gifts of blood, but rewards of service. The line will be redrawn sharply. You cannot simultaneously possess the dignity of a national symbol and freely operate it as a personal brand in the commercial market. If you choose independence and glamorous contracts, that's your right, but you will no longer be part of the symbol machine. William's plan was revolutionary because it shifted power back to the incumbent monarch through clear legal mechanisms. The decision of who stayed and who left would not be based on anger or personal feelings, but on a single criterion: commitment. This has been done historically for individuals who damage the public goodwill, and now it's been standardized into an operating procedure. Once you step outside to pursue your own values, you'll have to shed the protective coat of royalty. This battle isn't just about titles on paper, but about redefining what it means to be a member of royalty in the 21st century. William is building a legal fortress to ensure that whoever comes and goes, the institution will remain. As the spotlight fades, what remains is not personal squabbles, but a purified system ready for the challenges of the future. In the philosophy of ancient dynasties, there is a harsh truth. When you step through the gates to seek personal freedom, the glory of the institution will not follow you. Remember, in the philosophy of thousand-year dynasties, once you choose to step outside in search of freedom, the halo of heritage will never follow you. Facing these cold yet visionary maneuvers, how do you feel about Prince William's actions? If you support this decisiveness and believe it is a vital step to protect the legacy, leave a number 2 in the comments. If you feel these rules are too harsh and lack compassion for family, leave a number 5. We look forward to seeing your choice in the comments below. Prince William's entire vision is encapsulated in one powerful idea. If a symbol belonged to everyone, it would lose its meaning to everyone. The power of a dynasty lies in its uniqueness. Once its noble title is juxtaposed with consumer goods or social media posts, its sacred value vanishes. A constitutional legacy turned into an entertainment accessory. William did not act out of anger or personal vendetta. He is acting as a strategist, looking 50, 100, or even 200 years into the future. The question he is asking is not how to please all family members, but rather, what does this institution need to survive in the future? His answer was the limitations. The boundaries were clear, strictly enforced, and non-negotiable. To achieve this, a strategic brain was established drawing on models from Nordic monarchies such as Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands, places that successfully modernized by streamlining their bureaucracy and redefining the value of service. This is the biggest difference between the present and the past. While King Charles always sought a compromise, a balance between family ties and responsibility, William's approach was binary, in or out. According to him, this is not a family company where members can join or withdraw according to their personal lifestyles. It is an institution with a supreme purpose. All participants must be fully committed or completely separate. There is no room for half-hearted solutions where people want to enjoy the privileges of the crown while simultaneously pursuing private commercial deals. In the face of attempts to maintain power through legal means or media, the new system William is building is creating a constitutional fortress. When rules are codified and based on the principle of service, any individual resistance becomes insignificant in the face of institutional weight. The truth is, the world may change, but the essence of monarchical authority always demands a sacrifice of the ego for the common good. We are witnessing the birth of a new era, an era where glory is not measured by media fame, but by unwavering adherence to core values. William is proving that to protect a crown, sometimes one must learn to say no decisively, because ultimately only what is truly pure can endure the test of time. There is a truth that the media often overlooks. Glittering titles never belong to a specific individual. They are not inherited property or permanent possessions. In the structure of the British monarchy, every title is borrowed from the throne. When the connection to the source of power is shaken, those titles can return to where they originated. This is not a typical property dispute, but the reclamation of constitutional symbols. In the world of administrative procedures, there is a term that sounds dry but carries immense weight: letters patent, royal patent. Don't let the name fool you. This is essentially a supreme executive decree of the monarch. No noisy parliamentary votes, no complicated referendums. With just a carefully drafted document and the signature of the head of the monarchy, the entire power structure, the order of succession, and royal membership can be fundamentally altered. This is the most powerful tool, allowing the king to redefine his common home in an instant. To understand this power, we must go back in time to 1917. Amidst the upheavals of the era, King George V recognized a paradox: the proliferation of titles was diluting the value of the royal family. Distant relatives' branches, no longer contributing to the common good, were still holding these prestigious titles. With historical determination, he issued a decree to narrow the list of those called prince and princess. This was not personal animosity, but a campaign, refining symbols to protect the prestige of the Windsor family. History is witnessing a repetition of that mindset in the new era. Amidst speculation about legal battles or intentions of resistance, there is an invisible but solid barrier: royal privileges. Once a decree has been issued based on long-standing constitutional rules, any individual attempts at litigation are often rendered ineffective against the will of the monarchy. Disputes over names or membership are no longer matters of emotion, but of formal legal documents. A lack of understanding of these mechanisms sometimes leads to illusions of power that are unrealistically impossible to fulfill. Eventually, the media frenzy would die down, leaving only the archived documents in the National Archives. William and his strategic council understood power lay not in debate, but in wielding the pen that wrote the rules. Once the decree was signed, history would turn a new page, and those who failed to adapt to the new rules would become mere footnotes in the flow of time. In the world of long-established institutions, seismic changes rarely came from public debates or noisy elections. It comes from the stillness of the pen. A group of people might be considered representatives of a dynasty in the morning, but by afternoon that position may be a thing of the past. This is the privilege of supremacy. No approval needed, just a signed decision, and the course of history will change. Many sources suggest that a strategic update lies in the archives of Kensington Palace, awaiting its moment of realization. This draft carries a simple yet revolutionary message. Titles are associated with dedication. Only those who are truly present and serve the institution full-time are allowed to wear the official emblems. The rest will be returned to the warmth of their families, but no longer as representatives of the nation. This is a step aimed at protecting the rarity and value of the royal brand in the 21st century. Imagine the power of a title. For individuals who have built entire personal empires on a single word such as Duchess, stripping them of official recognition is a devastating blow. Identity reconstruction thoroughly. When institutional backing disappears, that title is no longer a magic key to unlocking doors of power or multi-million-dollar contracts. It becomes a ceremonial title lacking the weight of legitimacy. In the world of high-level partnerships, the difference between official representative and related party is a chasm of value. Every speech, every production project, or every international event we see largely revolves around royal appearances. But what happens when the energy supplying that aura is cut off? When an individual abandons their status to seek independence, they inadvertently put themselves to a harsh market test. Is personal value great enough to survive without the shadow of the crown? William understood this better than anyone. He didn't need to fight. He simply needed to clarify the boundaries. Look at what has been built. From audio programs called archetypes to literary works signed with a prestigious title. In the world of influence, every speech, every appearance, and every branding deal is anchored to a single pillar of support: title. It's not just a name, it's a master key that unlocks doors that an ordinary celebrity could hardly reach. But what happens if that support suddenly disappears? Imagine a new reality when the signboards at international events only display a personal name without the backing of a crown. The entertainment world is inherently pragmatic in its calculations of value. They don't just pay for fame, they pay for value, exclusive and legitimate. Without those sacred words, would the allure remain intact? Fame may be brilliant, but it is often fleeting, while an institution thousands of years old possesses the power of permanence. When the radiance is cut off from its roots, the foundation of an entire personal empire, will begin to show cracks in its values. Prince William did not act in ambiguity. He had deeply studied how neighboring dynasties adapted to the times. One particular case caught his attention: Queen Margrethe II's decisiveness in Denmark. With a single statement, she streamlined the monarchy by revoking the titles of her own nephews. Her reasoning was clear. The monarchy needed clarity of roles, not the chaos of symbols without accountability. William observed how the world reacted, how public opinion stabilized, and how the Danish monarchy became lean and stable. It's definitely better after that surgery. The confidence of the British heir to the throne stems from understanding that preserving a great heritage sometimes requires making difficult decisions. Restructuring doesn't necessarily have to be a dramatic face-to-face confrontation. It can unfold quietly through official channels, yet its impact can be transformative. When the rules of legitimacy are enforced, the line between a person of royal lineage and one media star, it will become unmistakable. History has proven that the longest-lasting institutions are not the most rigid, but those that adapt before being forced to. Prince William learned a valuable lesson from the northern dynasties. Decisiveness doesn't need to be accompanied by noise. In Denmark, a symbolic transfer of power took place quietly, decisively, and without compromise. The goal wasn't to please everyone, but to protect the centralization and transparency of the royal family. When the lines are redrawn, the gray area of privileges without accompanying responsibilities will be completely eliminated. While London is quietly building a legal fortress across the Atlantic, alarm bells have begun to ring. Terms like restructuring or title reform are no longer whispers in palace corridors, but have become an existential threat to a functioning media empire. Realizing that their foundation depended entirely on their connection with the royal court, a bold strategy was devised: commercializing the sacred. The idea of turning a royal title into a trademark began to take shape, an attempt to transform national heritage into corporate assets existing independently of the will of the crown. This was an unprecedented confrontation in history. One side viewed the title as service to the Constitution. One side considers it as brand identity. If a title is registered as intellectual property, it becomes a business tool, a legal entity beyond the control of the monarchy. But can a signature on commercial paper replace the weight of thousands of years of tradition? William and his constitutional experts are facing a thorny question. How can we prevent the transformation of a national symbol into a personal marketing tool without creating a global legal crisis? William understood that the power of the monarchy lay in its monopoly on legitimacy. Once you allow a family member to privatize a title for commercial purposes, you inadvertently open the door to the disintegration of the symbol. His answer remained consistent: clarity. There are no middle ground. You can't be both a businessman running a global brand and a representative of the monarchy. This separation is necessary to protect public trust and the sanctity of the heritage. This battle isn't just about titles on book covers or podcasts. It's a battle to redefine the value of honor in the 21st century. When strategic plans clash with commercial ambitions, what ultimately remains will be what is most authentic. History will remember those who dared to draw painful lines to protect the whole, rather than those who sought to possess a piece of the spotlight for themselves. In the game of symbols, the final piece always belongs to the one who holds the power of legitimacy. In an attempt to secure the future, a purely commercial idea was proposed, trademarking a royal title. The goal was clear: to transform a noble title into a business asset, a brand that could be protected by civil law. However, in the world of monarchies, applying a checkerboard mentality to a national-level chess game was a systemic mistake. They forgot that only the crown has the right to decide what belongs to it. Before the initial paperwork was even completed, the palace was a step ahead. Without any public debate, Prince William's advisors had established a legal, protective perimeter. They had quietly activated stringent regulations regarding the use of the royal title for commercial purposes. All escape routes were blocked, all loopholes closed. This was not an immediate reaction, but the result of a methodological study by leading historians and strategists. The message from Kensington Palace was very strong: the crown of bestowal and the crown of control. You can't take a piece of an institution, take it out into the world, and turn it into a personal business tool. William demonstrated a completely new style of leadership, far removed from the diplomatic finesse of the previous generation. He didn't seek compromise. He redrawn the lines with permanent ink where there was no room for alternatives or half-hearted negotiations. Most remarkably, William's team didn't need to create new rules. They simply activated rituals and precedents that had existed for centuries. By deeply understanding the existing system, they transformed ancient rules into the most powerful modern tools. They were prepared for every situation, every reaction, and every legal loophole. While their opponents were still grappling with the concept of trademarks, the dynasty had already asserted ultimate ownership of its own history. Throughout a millennium, the monarchy has faced countless tests of power. Every time it was challenged, the system did not collapse, but instead gave rise to new self-defense mechanisms. What Prince William is currently implementing is, in essence, a renaissance of old values within a modern context. Without needing to invent new laws, he and his team are simply dusting off long-standing protocols, rules that had been forgotten but still carry the primal weight of legitimacy. This approach possesses a brilliant strategic quality. Change is not presented as an act of punishment or a personal confrontation, but rather as a process of transformation, modernization, and streamlining. Who can object to clarity? Who can resist making an institution more transparent and fit for the 21st century? By firmly linking every decision to the flow of tradition, William created an impenetrable shield. You cannot challenge an institution when it is operating according to the very rules that have sustained its existence for generations. After years of turmoil and relentless media attention, the palace is now enveloped in a completely different atmosphere: confident stillness. The defensive, passive attitude has vanished, replaced by a proactive and visionary demeanor. Even the most discerning observers must acknowledge that this is a strategic move at the highest level. There are no more public debates, no more emotionally charged counter-messages. The institution has chosen a dignified silence as its response to all the external noise. William has proven that he is no longer someone waiting for his turn. He is truly leading and reshaping the monarchy right now. With his dignity above the noise mindset, he has transformed challenges into opportunities to renew the entire system. His patience and methodology have created a sharper, more focused, and more purposeful entity. While personal stories continue to unfold in the newspapers under changed conditions, the Crown has completed its self-purification to stand firm against the tide of time. When the oak doors close and the mystique of royalty is no longer included as part of the brand's gift package, an existential question arises. Where does the true value of an individual lie when separated from the cradle of institution? In the chambers of power of the elite, what remains of the invitation, when the strength of millennia of history is no longer a foundation? This is not a personal attack, but a harsh test of self-reliance. The crown doesn't need to be destroyed because it possesses the most powerful weapon, time and evolution. It doesn't need dramatic confrontations or noisy acts of retaliation. Instead, it chooses to adapt using the very systems that have sustained its position for 10 centuries to address modern challenges. This is the operation of a machine refined by blood and fire, knowing how to turn every upheaval into a springboard for survival. While the world was captivated by the hype and sensational headlines, a long-term game was underway. William and his strategic team proved an enduring truth. Real power doesn't belong to the person who speaks the loudest in the room, but to the person who understands the system best. They aren't building sandcastles on media, they're forging foundations of steel. The heir's confidence doesn't come from fleeting fame, but from mastering the operational codes of an empire that will never sink. The crown doesn't need to destroy anyone. It just needs to patiently wait until the rules of the institution fulfill their mission. Now the moment of waiting has ended. The plan of the chief architect, the one who holds power in the shadows of silence, is gradually becoming a reality. A new era has begun where legitimacy is paramount, and what doesn't belong to the foundation will automatically be filtered out by the currents of history. Ultimately, the biggest question remains: as the borrowed glory of the crown fades, what will truly remain behind the titles? The British monarchy doesn't need to speak out to assert its power. It simply lets the system operate according to the iron laws of history. Prince William has proven that in the game of symbols, the winner isn't the one who makes the most noise, but the one who knows how to preserve legitimacy amidst the storms of the times. Is this a necessary reconstruction to protect a millennium-old heritage, or a harsh step for those who have chosen their own path? We'd really love to hear your perspective. Do you side with King Charles's tolerance, or do you support Prince William's steel discipline? This is for reference only based on unverified hypotheses, rumors, and public opinion. Let's discuss this from an objective analytical standpoint. Don't just sit there, interact with me. Press 1 for curiosity and 0 for skepticism. Hit like and subscribe so we can uncover the truth behind the curtains together.
I mean, you really believe that maybe she had just decided to disappear for a time?
For a time, and then that she would call us and we would go and join her.
Visualize the intense moment as Prince William and Harry, two men who have lived their lives in the public eye, find themselves moved to the core by a truth they never saw coming. In an unprecedented move, King Charles has brought to light a confidence kept in the shadows for years, the last most personal wish of the people's princess. This is the moment where historical silence ends and a mother's true legacy is finally realized before the world. The question that lingers in the air is why this profound desire was kept in the shadows for so long. For two brothers who have been separated by a chasm of past grievances and public pressures, this revelation serves as a mirror to their own lives, offering a chance for a new understanding. This goes far beyond a simple headline. It is a cultural earthquake that challenges the stability of the institution, reminding us that the most powerful force in any monarchy is the truth of the human heart. Within the hushed corridors of the king's official residence, shielded from the relentless glare of the media, a pivotal event transpired that would alter the crown's future. In a profound gesture of transparency, King Charles unlocked a personal safe to address the hidden burdens of his royal inheritance. This vault had reportedly remained undisturbed for decades, a silent witness to history. Yet inside lay neither crown jewels nor official decrees, but a simple sealed envelope inscribed with the recognizable script of Princess Diana. Summoning Prince William and Prince Harry to his side, King Charles presented the letter with a voice heavy with emotion. "This is your mother's final legacy. She left this specifically for both of you." A profound hush descended upon the room, marking the end of a 20-year silence. The gravity of the situation spoke for itself. Tucked inside was a handwritten letter by Diana just days before her passing, a document known only to the king and his most loyal advisor until this sudden unveiling. The letter's text unveiled a long-concealed perspective on Diana's final intentions. Her vision for her sons centered on a life unburdened by the rigid expectations of the throne. Rather than focusing on status, wealth, or protocol, her message prioritized their autonomy and personal happiness. After absorbing the words, Harry reportedly noted that her true desire was for them to prioritize their humanity over their royal heritage. To William, the gravity of this encounter felt profoundly intimate. This was far more than a simple piece of correspondence. It represented a final echoing voice from the mother taken from him far too early, a woman whose life was cut short by the very world she sought to transform. "I never anticipated the sheer magnitude of the scrutiny." The letter read, describing a life where public obligation and private peace collided in a nearly unendurable struggle. She envisioned a life for them defined by true independence. This disclosure ignited a surge of emotion and brought critical questions to the forefront. Why had Charles withheld this letter for so long? What specific pleas had Diana penned in those concluding sentences? The pursuit of these answers triggered a series of seismic shifts within the palace, threatening to reshape the very foundations of the modern monarchy. The weight of these revelations is becoming overwhelming. They are on the verge of uncovering even deeper truths that could permanently redefine the legacy of the British House of Windsor. Drop a number 2 in the comments and subscribe now, because the upcoming chapters will challenge everything you thought you understood about Princess Diana and the future of the crown. Diana's ultimate ambition was for her sons to experience true independence. The correspondence was short, but its resonance shook the very foundations of the House of Windsor. Drafted in her recognizable hand just weeks before her tragic end, this final message focused neither on wealth nor the acquisition of prestigious titles. It wasn't an act of retaliation against her adversaries. It was a mother's desperate appeal, urgent, visceral, and haunting. As one aide revealed, the letter pleaded, "Allow them to live without fear. Let them define their own lives." These sentiments were reserved for her sons William and Harry, the two individuals who anchored her entire universe. They were the sole reason she weathered every sterile state dinner, every public indignity, and every heartbreak suffered in the shadows. Diana's haunting concern was that the monarchy would recast her boys as marble statues, shimmering remote and hollowed out by centuries of institutional emotional restraint. She had observed the psychological toll it took on Charles and the monarchs who preceded him. The institution didn't instruct its heirs in the art of empathy. Instead, it trained them to master a public facade regardless of the personal sacrifice. Diana sought to break this cycle for her children. "I refuse to let them be imprisoned by a life they didn't choose," she penned. "They deserve to love openly, to experience emotion, and to lead without hiding behind a persona." Within the rigid walls of the palace, that sentiment was revolutionary. It was profoundly moving. It was quintessentially Diana. She understood that one day William would inherit the massive burden of the crown, while Harry, as the second-born, would face the even more complex struggle of being the spare. Diana feared their identities would be molded by institutional duty rather than personal passion, that the weight of the monarchy would eventually erase their authentic spirits. This wasn't a call for an uprising. This was fundamentally a mission of sanctuary. As the global spotlight tightened around the family, their inner confidence began to erode within a haze of isolation and sorrow. While they gradually distanced themselves from those who could offer support, Diana endured what she characterized as the emotional vacuum of the royal institution. She had sought compassion only to find herself constrained by a rigid set of mandates. She reached out for a lifeline and was met with a wall of indifference. Though she became the most scrutinized woman on the planet, she lived in a state of profound invisibility. She was determined to prevent history from repeating itself. Yet what truly stunned William and Harry wasn't simply their mother's final plea. It was the crushing realization that their father had withheld that secret from them for more than 20 years. The correspondence was hermetically sealed, tucked into a confidential file, and submerged beneath layers of bureaucratic red tape within the king's personal vault. The motivation. According to palace confidants, Charles dreaded the impact of Diana's words not merely on the crown's public reputation, but on its delicate internal architecture. If her ultimate desire was for her children to reject the monarchy's grip, how could the centuries-old institution endure? Some insiders suggest Charles feared the message would validate Harry's departure and plant seeds of profound uncertainty in the mind of the future King William. Alternative theories suggest this wasn't an act of guardianship, but rather a display of systemic power and control. Regardless of the motive, the consequences were irreversible. The veil had finally been lifted. Both princes were suddenly forced to grapple with a reality that had been obscured for their entire adult lives. Yet for William, the gravity of the moment was far more profound. It appeared Diana hadn't merely addressed a single letter to both of her children. Back in 2004, during a modest restoration at one of Diana's former residences, a startling find came to light. A long-lost message concealed for decades was found tucked between the leaves of her private photo collection. This document, wholly unique within the annals of royal history, was written exclusively for Prince William. It bypassed all state channels, serving as an intimate rather than a formal or official decree. This was a profoundly intimate exchange, a candid and heartfelt dialogue between a mother and her child. Upon reading those passages, William was reportedly left reeling. The text unveiled a perspective that remained obscured to the public, Diana's acute understanding of the immense weight her eldest son would eventually be forced to shoulder. "The day will come when the crown is yours," she penned. Yet what followed was neither a summons to service nor a lecture on sovereign obligation. Instead, it was a poignant appeal. "Promise me you will protect the child you once were." In those few words, Diana's voice bridged the gap of decades. It was a mother's warning about the inheritance awaiting him, the relentless scrutiny, the demand for conformity, and the slow erosion of identity that so often accompanies the throne. The intrigue surrounding this correspondence deepens when analyzing its specific timeline. It surfaced not during the chaotic 1990s, but amidst the simmering tension that preceded the public dissolution of the royal marriage. One must wonder, did Charles truly hold these convictions at that stage? Was he reaching out to a high-ranking ecclesiastical advisor, or perhaps a mentor following in the footsteps of the legendary Lord Mountbatten? Within the palace, some contend this was no mere slip of the tongue, but a calculated emotional maneuver. These written words have compelled historians to reconsider the monarchy's official timeline. It raises a haunting question: could this be a nascent confession of something far more significant than previously imagined? Are we witnessing the unraveling of a sophisticated institutional concealment that has spanned decades? Unverified theories that were once relegated to the shadows have suddenly resurfaced with a new intensity. Once viewed as mere speculation, these questions about the royal succession have gained new traction following the reveal of the king's private papers. This leaves us with a haunting question: is there a hidden chapter of royal history that the establishment is not yet ready for the world to read? Everything changed with the unveiling of those hidden words. A scenario that once felt impossible now seems like a logical explanation for a series of historic anomalies. In the early 80s, Diana's health was often a subject of official concern, yet the details remained shrouded in ambiguity. We are now learning of hushed discussions between medical experts and royal staff that went far beyond public knowledge. If the rift in the marriage was already widening, could the crown have orchestrated a secret solution to ensure the future of the throne? The crown possesses both the influence and the incentive. All that is missing is a veil of silence. Charles's haunting observation, "not hers from the beginning," casts a chilling new light on the past. In this scenario, Diana may have been recruited to fulfill a public role, raising a child to whom she had no biological tie. This perspective offers a potential explanation for both the hidden correspondence and her years of quiet suffering. Some historians now argue that this is more than just conjecture. It could be the key to understanding the profound emotional void and the lifelong sense of displacement that has defined Harry's journey. If Charles was attempting to voice a conflict he had grappled with for decades, it would explain the long-standing friction noted by those closest to the crown. While their public appearances were governed by rigid formality, a distinct lack of warmth became increasingly undeniable as Harry reached adulthood. While some dismiss this as a mere generational gap, insiders perceive a deeper pattern, a systemic avoidance of vulnerability. As one former palace official observed, Charles often appeared hesitant to bridge the emotional divide with Harry, as if he were caught between a desire to connect and an uncertainty of his own right to do so. The House of Windsor has long functioned within a realm of rigid protocols and unspoken legacies. They maintain a fortress around their private hardships, demanding a uniform silence from every member of the lineage. Historically, they have resisted evolution, anchoring themselves to ancient rituals while shunning any public display of vulnerability. However, Diana chose a different journey. She gave a voice to her suffering courageously, identifying the solitude she faced and exposing the staggering weight of the crown, a reality no one had previously ventured to describe. It was this very authenticity that cemented her place in the public's heart. Prince Edward, observing with his characteristic composure, watched the internal struggle play out. He saw the royal establishment faltering to maintain its pace, while Diana's vulnerability forged a connection with the masses that the crown simply could not replicate. Her honesty did more than just illuminate her private battles. It cast a harsh spotlight on the increasingly obsolete foundations of the monarchy itself. For decades, the House of Windsor had meticulously curated their public persona. They maintained a glossed and remote exterior, yet Diana proved impossible to regulate or suppress. Her profound authenticity, which captured the global imagination, emerged as the ultimate danger to the traditional royal order. She evoked a visceral, deeply human response, transforming her into more than a defiant royal. She became an existential threat to the very foundations of the throne. The more the establishment attempted to muffle her voice, the more evident it became that their hold on the public's loyalty was slipping away. Within the walls of Buckingham Palace, an impenetrable silence has taken hold, a quiet that offers no clarity and admits no fault. Behind the vacant corridors and hushed high-stakes meetings, a palpable sense of dread is mounting. Insiders suggest the true fear isn't just this single revelation, but the specter of what else remains hidden. A royal source has confirmed that a specialized crisis management team has been mobilized, reminiscent of the unit deployed during the Sussex's landmark Oprah interview. Their objective is clear: contain the leaks, mitigate the fallout, and retrieve the original dossier. Rumors are now swirling that additional correspondence may exist, letters intended for Diana, William, or Harry. If even one more document comes to light, the consequences could be catastrophic, potentially triggering a legal and constitutional crisis that challenges the very laws of succession and royal inheritance. Prince William is a man who carries the weight of the truth. He has guarded this secret for decades. If he were indeed a silent participant in this concealment, it wouldn't be just a family matter, it would be a betrayal with the potential to fracture their bond permanently. The burden of this knowledge is immense. As the face of the modern throne, William has been meticulously prepared for leadership since infancy. However, following the revelation of this letter, his long-standing silence has begun to invite scrutiny and spark uncertainty. If this secret was indeed part of the palace's inner circle, it's highly likely that William has lived with it for many years. Prince William and Prince Harry, enduring figures in the global spotlight, have navigated their share of public triumphs and private tribulations. Yet no hardship parallels the devastating loss of their mother, Princess Diana. For the brothers, her passing was more than a personal tragedy. It was a seismic shift that fundamentally altered their trajectories. In truth, the once unbreakable bond between William and Harry began to subtly erode in the wake of her death. While difficult to confront, these undercurrents of friction had been mounting for decades, eventually serving as a primary catalyst for the drastic transformations in their respective lives. William was transfixed by the archival footage, captivated by the visible warmth in his mother's eyes. He watched as Diana tenderly brushed a stray lock of hair from Harry's forehead and leaned in to share a private whisper that sent Harry into a fit of laughter. While the audio remained a mystery, the physical language of her affection was undeniable. This wasn't merely a nostalgic clip. It was a long, sealed portal to a childhood William hadn't realized he had suppressed. Watching it now, he felt the sharp, familiar ache of grief, a visceral reminder that a vital piece of his history had been permanently severed. Positioned at the base of the monument dedicated to her memory, William began to speak. "My mother's voice has been my constant companion." He remarked, a solemnity in his tone that forced the world to stand still. This transcended a mere public tribute. It was an intimate unburdening of a secret guarded by the establishment for a lifetime. Bit by bit, he started to recount the final phrase Diana breathed into his ear during their last moments together. A secret message that for nearly 30 years had belonged to him alone. William also dedicated himself to dissecting the origins of Diana's turmoil. While some wounds had scabbed over others, remained dangerously close to the surface. He began a period of deep inquiry, seeking out those who knew her best, driven not by a desire to replace his mother, but by a mission to preserve her essence. To him, this was the only way to ensure her brand of compassion endured. Eventually, William's vision shifted toward a permanent tribute, one that felt profoundly authentic. He didn't envision a cold marble gallery or a sterile monument. Instead, he sought a sanctuary that felt soft and familiar, a peaceful garden, or a quiet, sunlit room filled with her photographs. It would be a space designed for reflection without judgment, a place where the world could finally see Diana as she truly was. Diana did the impossible. She breathed life into an institution that had grown cold. Before her arrival, the monarchy was a world of shadows, hidden behind layers of rigid rules and a calculated professional distance. The royals weren't people. They were icons of history and tradition expected to remain unmoved by emotion. Diana, however, rewrote the script. She didn't seek sanctuary behind guards or grand facades. She was soft-spoken yet bold, choosing to lead with her heart, and showing the world that even a future queen wasn't afraid to offer a warm public embrace. She traded distant scripted gestures for a place in the heart of the crowd. She touched hands, looked strangers in the eye, and shared moments of authentic connection that felt entirely foreign to the royal script. Diana didn't just represent the crown. She humanized it, closing the gap between the palace and the pavement. Yet the very warmth that endeared her to the world was seen as a dangerous liability within the cold corridors of power. To the establishment, her accessibility wasn't a triumph. It was a breach of tradition that shook the royal family to its core. Diana's popularity wasn't manufactured. It was a natural byproduct of a heart that refused to be managed. She didn't just occupy a space at official engagements, she transformed them into moments of genuine connection. While others observed protocol, she visited the sickbeds that many were too terrified to approach. By embracing those living with HIV/AIDS, she didn't just change the narrative, she forced the world to see their humanity. Her walk through active minefields wasn't for the cameras. It was a tactical move to demand safety and justice for the victims of conflict. She didn't seek the spotlight. She redirected it toward the people the world had abandoned. The battle to remain authentic eventually left her exhausted. The strength and independence that defined her were the very things that fueled her deepest heartaches. She could no longer survive behind the mask of a dutiful, smiling royal. When she stepped into the light to share her pain, she shattered the illusion of the crown's perfection. The royal family, anchored in centuries of secrecy, found themselves paralyzed by her truth, caught in a storm of honesty they never saw coming. It leaves us with a haunting question. Was Diana the architect of the monarchy's future or the catalyst for its collapse? Stay tuned for the answer. The role she played is impossible to ignore. Many argue that she granted the royal family a second act they desperately needed. Before her arrival, the institution's relevance was beginning to fade. In the eyes of the public, the royals were starting to resemble a museum piece, rigid, unapproachable, and locked in an outdated script. With Diana's arrival, the entire landscape was transformed. She brought a warmth and a vibrancy that reconnected a fading monarchy with the hearts of the people. She forced the royal family back into relevance, dragging them, however reluctantly, into the light of the modern world. But her presence was more than a spotlight. It was a beacon that penetrated the shadows of the institution. Many believe Diana didn't just change the family. She exposed them, unearthing the secrets and the silence that the palace had guarded for a lifetime. When Diana began to vocalize the isolation and crushing pressure she endured within the palace, she effectively dismantled the velvet curtains shielding the monarchy's pristine facade. She revealed that beneath the glimmer of the diamonds and the grandeur of the staterooms lay a rigid, insular environment defined by institutional coldness. Her unflinching honesty struck a profound chord with the global consciousness, creating a legacy of truth that decades later the royal establishment is still laboring to reconcile. Diana's life on the world stage was a grand theatrical display, a facade she perfected for a nation in love with the idea of a princess. Yet, in the quiet of her private journals, she stripped away the costume. She didn't perform. She confessed. These hidden pages reveal the raw, unvarnished story of a woman standing at the edge of a precipice. Her writings are a roadmap of loneliness and a haunting fear of total loss of self. She captured the growing resentment within her marriage, writing, "He hates that they love me more than him," as her popularity became a source of palace-wide tension. In these pages, she laid bare her internal war with bulimia, a silent, agonizing cry for help in a world of golden silence. To understand Diana, one must look at her not as a princess, but as a mother who refused to surrender her children to the machine of the monarchy. Despite the cold indifference that met her cries for help, she waged a silent war for William and Harry's souls. "They are the only part of my life that matters," she wrote. "I won't let them become shadows." She saw the trap before they did, the danger of growing up emotionally distant, obsessed with optics, and isolated from human connection. Looking back, her diaries read like a roadmap of the very struggles we see today. She foresaw a future where the frost of the royal family threatened to extinguish the warmth of genuine family bonds. However, this uncompromising honesty bequeathed her sons a rare inheritance: the permission to be vulnerable. Her collective writings, the diaries, and that final correspondence established a definitive creed: prioritize love over legacy, safeguard the heart over the hierarchy. Diana's ultimate ambition transcended mere security for her children. It was an urgent plea for their authenticity, a shield intended to prevent them from becoming captives to the sterile, unyielding traditions of the crown. The veil has been lifted, and Diana's final vision is now a matter of public record. The monarchy is standing on a historical precipice, facing a transformation that will redefine its legacy forever. This is no longer a simple domestic drama. It is a battle for the soul of the crown. Will William choose to follow the ancient script written by his predecessors, or will he fulfill the promise his mother left behind, a leadership rooted in human connection instead of institutional pride? The gravity of this choice is the ultimate burden of his inheritance. Could this revelation serve as the catalyst for reconciliation, or has the distance become an insurmountable gulf? Between the weight of public words and the scarcity of private grace, the crown's silence speaks volumes. Yet the reality is undeniable. Everything has changed. With the Elizabethan age over and the current reign aging, the future of the throne now rests with a generation rising from the legacy of a mother who stood against the machine and sacrificed everything to change it. This is purely for reference purposes, only based on hypotheses and unverified rumors/public opinion. Let's discuss it from an objective, analytical perspective. We have reached the end of this journey through the poignant and hidden words of Princess Diana. Her spirit remains a powerful force shaping not only her children's journey, but the very destiny of the British monarchy. One question continues to haunt the record. Is a reconciliation possible in the name of their mother's last request, or has the divide become an insurmountable part of their history? If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Everyone always thought he would remain in the background, quietly standing by Princess Anne's side without a single complaint. For years, Sir Timothy Lawrence has been known as a symbol of devotion and discretion within the royal family. But now, a shocking revelation from the man himself, the loyal husband of Princess Anne, has stunned the royal circle. No one saw this coming. And you might be surprised too. Can you guess what's about to be revealed? If you can comment. 1. If not comment, 0 below. Don't forget to share your thoughts, hit follow, and join us as we uncover the untold secrets of the British royal family. For years, he quietly observed all the power struggles and behind-the-scenes rivalries unfolding behind the palace doors. But only recently, he broke his silence and revealed a dark secret about Queen Camilla, a truth that could completely change the public's perception of her. So what is that secret? Why did it take so many years to come to light? And how deeply will this revelation shake the royal family's already fragile relationships? This is a layered and complex story between two royal women. Imagine two women living within the same royal family yet completely different in personality and behavior. This is the portrait of Princess Anne and Queen Camilla, two women who have never shared a close or warm relationship. Their connection isn't bound by affection, but by years of simmering tension, wary glances, and an unspoken rivalry that has never truly ended. The rift between them didn't begin suddenly. It has been smoldering for decades, tracing back to a tangled romance in the 1970s. At the time, Princess Anne was deeply involved in a romantic relationship with Andrew Parker Bowles, the man who would later become Camilla's husband. Although the two couldn't marry due to Andrew being Catholic, a faith that conflicted with royal protocol at the time, their relationship was believed to be genuinely heartfelt. In 1973, Andrew and Camilla reunited and got married. From that point on, Anne was visibly uncomfortable with Camilla's presence. The woman who had married the man Anne once deeply loved, frequently appearing at events in Buckingham Palace. But things didn't stop there. Nearly 3 decades later, Camilla went on to marry Prince Charles, Anne's younger brother. This overlapping relationship made it impossible for Anne to truly accept Camilla's presence within the royal family. According to those close to the palace, Camilla often felt pressured and overshadowed by Princess Anne's strong-willed and determined personality. For years, Camilla tried to keep her distance, even avoiding contact with her sister-in-law. However, tensions reached a boiling point during King Charles's coronation. At that time, Camilla expressed her desire to be called Queen rather than the traditional title of Queen Consort. This deeply angered Princess Anne. She firmly asserted that Camilla was not a queen in the true sense and should only be addressed by the correct title of Queen Consort. The conflict escalated, and although both always maintained a polite demeanor in public, anyone could sense the chilling tension between them that was impossible to hide. Many years after her relationship with Andrew ended, Princess Anne found happiness with Sir Timothy Lawrence, a former Royal Navy Vice Admiral known for his calm demeanor, discipline, and avoidance of the media spotlight. They married in 1992 in a simple yet dignified ceremony. It was Sir Timothy, quietly supporting his wife behind the scenes, who held one of the royal family's biggest secrets. Having served the nation for many years and possessing a clear-eyed view of what happens behind the royal family's glamorous facade, he discovered something no one else dared to speak about. This secret not only shook the royal family's inner circle, but also had the potential to undermine the public image that people had long trusted about Queen Camilla. Since joining the royal family, Sir Timothy Lawrence's role as Princess Anne's husband has always been clear, quietly protecting and supporting his wife, serving the monarchy, and steering clear of any scandal or power struggles within the palace. He is a man of disciplined responsibility and never lets emotions dictate his actions. However, by 2025, Timothy realized he could no longer stay out of the situation. What he witnessed within the royal family, especially from Queen Camilla, could no longer be ignored. At first, Timothy thought Princess Anne's criticisms of Camilla were simply due to his wife's naturally strong-willed and tough personality. But over time, he began to see that something was wrong. Camilla wasn't just someone who annoyed others. She seemed to act with calculated intent, carefully taking each step as if climbing a preordained ladder of power. When piecing together the events of the past, Timothy began to see how suspiciously everything fit into place. Camilla's affair with Prince Charles years ago not only shattered his marriage to Princess Diana, but also triggered a series of serious consequences, from the highly publicized divorce to Diana's heartbreaking tragedy. While the public may have varied perspectives for Princess Anne, who always places honor, duty, and family above all else, what Camilla did was unforgivable. According to Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's former husband, he confided in Timothy that Camilla had once neglected her own children to focus on inserting herself into the relationship between Charles and Diana. For Anne, this only reinforced her belief that Camilla was never truly fit to represent the core values of the royal family. But what's happening now is what truly worries Timothy. In recent years, as King Charles's health began to show signs of decline, Timothy has noticed a clear shift in Camilla's attitude and behavior. She no longer plays the role of the steady support she once claimed to be. In contrast, during royal meetings, internal events, and even family dinners, Camilla began speaking on Charles's behalf, offering opinions and steering discussions. For Timothy, who served in the military as a Royal Navy Vice Admiral, he clearly sensed a change in her demeanor. From a supportive wife, Camilla was positioning herself as a leader, as if preparing for the role of a true queen, going beyond the traditional boundaries of a queen consort. Especially Timothy noticed that Camilla began intervening in sensitive matters, like the Regency Act and succession plans. What's notable is that Camilla didn't just offer opinions, she issued directives and unsolicited advice, particularly to Prince William and Princess Kate. According to Timothy, these lessons sometimes crossed the line, making Kate feel pressured and fueling even more anger in Anne. What do you think about Camilla's interference? Do you feel her actions have gone too far? If yes, leave a 2 in the comments. If no, comment. 5. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to support the channel, giving me more motivation to bring you deeper insights in upcoming videos. However, what hurt Timothy and Princess Anne the most was how Camilla began managing King Charles's time. Under the pretext of protecting the king's health and peace of mind, Camilla increasingly limited his interactions with family, especially with Anne. On more than one occasion, Princess Anne returned home disappointed after last-minute cancellations of private meetings with her brother, moments she always cherished which Camilla skillfully blocked. For Anne, this wasn't just an inconvenience, it felt like a deliberate sidelining of family ties, eroding the trust between close relatives. Even the small family gatherings at Clarence House events that should have simply been moments to strengthen sibling bonds began to shrink. Strangely, Princess Anne was often left off the guest list. For someone who always puts family first, this was no small matter. What worried Sir Timothy Lawrence the most wasn't just the outward distance, but something deeper, a form of hidden power quietly spreading like a cold mist over the royal family. Timothy noticed how Camilla used words like a sweet yet corrosive weapon. She would gently say to King Charles, "Anne is just busy with horses and charities. She doesn't understand the real pressures of leadership like we do." In front of others, she appeared humble, but behind their backs, she skillfully sowed seeds of doubt. To the courtiers, Camilla expressed concerns that Prince William was too modern words that seemed harmless, but acted like a silent dagger cutting into the image of the heir to the throne. Timothy clearly understood the meaning behind these words. They were not simply personal remarks. This was a plan, a series of deliberately leaked statements designed to undermine the credibility of those around, so that Camilla could gradually establish herself as the only reliable pillar beside the king. The media campaign and the loaded silence. Then the media began to uniformly change their tone. Suddenly, headlines flooded the press like Camilla, the woman who holds the throne steady, the steady leadership of Queen Camilla. Meanwhile, there was almost no mention of Princess Anne's decades of service or the increasingly prominent roles of William and Kate in carrying the future of the royal family. For Timothy, everything was crystal clear. This was no coincidence. It was a systematically orchestrated campaign, a sophisticated strategy to place Camilla at the center, not only in the king's heart, but also in the eyes of the public. The atmosphere at the 2025 Royal Ascot Horse Racing Festival was as lively as ever, carriages, wide-brimmed hats, the cheers of the crowd. But behind the dazzling lights lay a cold truth. King Charles sat quietly, his face pale, breath weak, exhaustion clearly etched on his features. And then, in a seemingly ordinary moment, Timothy stood near Camilla and accidentally overheard her whispering to her private advisor, "This throne must forever remain in my hands, no matter what happens to Charles." The words stunned Timothy into silence. A chill ran down his spine, colder than any storm he had ever faced at sea. For the first time, he no longer saw Camilla as just a difficult sister-in-law, but as a real threat to the throne and to the royal family itself. After that moment, Timothy began to take action. He searched for answers, and what he discovered shocked him. It was not just a careless remark. It was the culmination of a plan years in the making, a double-edged conspiracy to keep Charles alive, but not strong enough to stand in Camilla's way. Since King Charles began cancer treatment, his health has rapidly declined. The public believed it to be the natural consequence of the disease, but according to a shocking source Timothy accessed, Camilla had influenced the king's personal doctor to intentionally reduce the chemotherapy dosage. Not enough to cause Charles's death, but just enough to weaken him, gradually stripping him of his ability to govern the country, forcing him to rely entirely on his wife. The recorded words sent chills down people's spines. "Keep him alive for the cameras, but weak for me. If he slips up, I will destroy his career and his family." No longer the image of a devoted wife, this was a woman willing to go to any lengths to hold on to power. But it didn't stop there. Camilla was also rumored to have manipulated Charles while he was physically and mentally weak to force him to sign a secret power of attorney document. On the surface, these were just ordinary administrative papers. But in reality, this document transferred control of Princess Anne's charitable funds and inheritance including those granted by Queen Elizabeth II and backed by the sovereign grant directly into Camilla's hands. For Anne, it wasn't just about money. It was her career, her personal legacy, the medical, educational, and charitable projects she had painstakingly built over decades. And if Camilla succeeded, she would not only take the money, but also strip away the identity and role of a loyal, quiet, and dedicated royal princess. Princess Anne had firmly insisted that securing her financial safety was not only her right, but also the king's sacred duty. With a husband burdened by inner torment and fear, he had no choice but to yield. It was not just Sir Timothy's suspicions that exposed Camilla's dark secret, but the courage of a seemingly insignificant man, Edward Thompson, a low-level staff member at Clarence House. Edward had quietly witnessed countless whispers, threats, and shadowy schemes surrounding Camilla's private affairs for years. During that time, he chose silence out of fear of severe consequences. But when he heard Camilla threaten the king's personal doctor with words sharp as a blade, he knew he could no longer stay quiet. With trembling courage, Edward secretly recorded the conversation on his phone, hiding it in his coat pocket as his heart pounded with every beat. That small act of bravery transformed Edward from a silent observer into the keeper of the key to the survival of the entire monarchy. When Sir Timothy received the recording, he felt a cold punch to his heart, later confessing to close friends, "This is no longer rumor or suspicion, but undeniable proof that Camilla's ambition has crossed the line, possibly even into criminal behavior." For Sir Timothy, discovering this truth was a heavy burden, but also an unshakable mission. He understood that holding this truth meant possessing the power to either break or save the kingdom. The issue was no longer just about King Charles's health or Princess Anne's finances, but the very soul and honor of an entire realm that millions around the world still revered. Despite the weight of guilt and responsibility pressing on his shoulders, Sir Timothy knew this was only the beginning. If Camilla was bold enough to manipulate the doctors and coerce the king himself, no one knew what else she might be capable of. Unable to delay any longer, he resolved to reveal the whole truth to the king. For Sir Timothy, uncovering this truth was a heavy burden, but also an unavoidable mission. He understood that holding this secret meant possessing the power to either break or save the dynasty. The issue was no longer just King Charles's health or Princess Anne's finances. It was the very soul and honor of a monarchy revered by millions worldwide. Despite the weight of guilt and responsibility on his shoulders, Sir Timothy knew this was only the beginning. If Camilla was bold enough to manipulate doctors and coerce the king himself, no one could predict what else she might do. Without hesitation, he decided to reveal the whole truth to the king. When the truth reached King Charles, it wasn't a single blow, but a series of violent waves crashing over his frail body. His heart shattered not only from the betrayal, but also from his own blindness. For more than 3 decades, Charles had steadfastly defended and proven his love for Camilla before family, church, and the public. He had defied public opposition to keep her close, insisting that their love was genuine and unshakable. Memories flooded Charles's mind, images of his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who had always shown clear caution whenever Camilla's name was mentioned. From the wedding day, when the Queen avoided taking photos with the newlyweds, she had only ever accepted Camilla reluctantly. At the time, Charles thought it was just the conservative view of an old generation, but now that judgment felt like a forewarning. Perhaps the Queen had seen it all along, that Camilla was not truly his partner, but a schemer. Charles recalled the long days lying in his hospital bed, exhausted from chemotherapy. He remembered the times Camilla sat beside him holding his hand, whispering words of comfort. But how many of those were lies? How many of those gentle touches were just a performance to hide ambition? This realization dug deep into his heart, turning him from a man standing strong into an empty shell. Not only was his body weakening, but his soul was fracturing as he recognized that the partner he had trusted for so many years was actually the mastermind behind a dark conspiracy. Yet what troubled him most wasn't the personal pain, but the fear of the royal family's reaction, his children, his sister, and his advisors. They had sacrificed so much for him, always standing by his side. Now, because of his choice, they had to endure the shame of scandal. For a man who had spent his entire life preparing to become king, the crown felt heavier than ever before. And for the first time in his reign, Charles wondered if he still had the strength and authority to continue wearing that crown. The heir's reaction. Prince William. When the video recording of Camilla's threats was played in front of Prince William, his reaction was immediate and intense, usually a model of calm composure that calm shattered completely. His face turned pale, then flushed red with uncontrollable anger. For William, this was not just an ordinary scandal, but a slow assassination, a ruthless plot to poison his father through cruel schemes to seize power. That anger transformed into unshakable determination. Rising above the initial shock, William quickly stepped up to take control of the situation with the assuredness of a natural-born leader. He made it clear that this was no longer a private family matter, but had become a legal crisis that demanded swift and decisive action. While William reacted fiercely, Princess Anne, known for her strong will and unshakable calm, broke down. Her tears were not from weakness, but from the burning pain and deep sorrow of a sister witnessing her beloved brother being cruelly manipulated and harmed. Princess Anne painfully recalled their late mother's final admonitions about her financial independence. Queen Elizabeth II had always been meticulous in ensuring that the charitable funds and assets meant for her daughter were securely protected from any risk of exploitation. Now seeing Camilla attempting to seize those sacred legacies, Anne felt she could no longer bear it. Standing firmly beside Prince William, Anne became a voice that no lawyer or advisor could replace. With a tone full of righteous anger, she clearly outlined the historical weight and profound emotional significance of their mother's will, while exposing the illegality and murky financial schemes orchestrated by Camilla. In the meeting room, the royal council, comprising senior advisors, top lawyers, and a few trusted friends of Queen Elizabeth, listened quietly. 3 tense hours passed as they debated vigorously over the legal and political consequences of the evidence. Could the truth be made public? Would exposing Camilla shatter the already fragile image of the monarchy in the modern world? Yet no doubt remained. Even the most cautious advisors admitted that if Camilla's conspiracy continued, it would not only destroy King Charles but also threaten to overturn the entire crown. One by one, hesitant voices gradually fell silent. And when the session ended, everyone reached a consensus. Camilla would be stripped of all executive powers and financial control. All charitable funds and assets that she tried to seize would be returned to Princess Anne and placed under the joint supervision of Anne and William. From now on, Camilla's role would be nothing more than an empty shell. She would only be the queen consort in name, without any real power. The council also made one final, equally important decision. This scandal must never be allowed to leak to the public. The secret that the queen consort had conspired against the king had to be kept under wraps because if it got out, people would start doubting the king's health and capability. Everything had been arranged smoothly, except Camilla had no idea how her life was about to change. When the news that her secret had been exposed reached Camilla, people expected her to be scared, remorseful, or at least pretend to be. But no. The walls of Clarence's house shook with her furious screams. Camilla paced the room like a cornered beast, hands, trembling face twisted with rage. She had spent her entire life climbing to the pinnacle of the monarchy, standing at the center of power. The thought that it could all be swept away in a single moment was unbearable to her. In a panic, Camilla made a reckless decision, revealing the depth of her fear. She summoned a close aide and coldly ordered eliminate Sir Timothy Lawrence. She blamed him entirely, accusing him of being overly curious, digging and exposing the secrets she had deliberately kept hidden. The assassination plot fails and tensions escalate. However, the assassination plot never succeeded. The plot was discovered and stopped before Sir Timothy's life was ever threatened. This event only reinforced the council's belief that Camilla was dangerous and mentally unstable. The news of the failure quickly reached her ears, causing Camilla's state of mind to spiral further into chaos. The palace, once the stage for her sophisticated manipulations, had now become a suffocating prison where every glance felt like a threat. She paced endlessly through the corridors, her mind tangled with impossible scenarios. She thought of ways to regain her position of power and silence her enemies. But every idea collapsed into the same conclusion: she had failed. But Camilla had no idea that the cruelest fate was yet to come. A simple letter sealed with the royal council's emblem was delivered to her. That seal signaled a serious message. With trembling hands, Camilla tore open the envelope and began to read. The merciless words, written in the cold language of law and order, clearly stated her executive powers were completely revoked. Her influence and authority would be stripped away. She would retain only the ceremonial title of Queen Consort, with no rights or power beyond a mere formality. Her eyes gradually dimmed, her face turning pale as she read each line. Those who witnessed it later recalled seeing her sit silently clutching the paper until it was torn and tattered. She had fought her entire life to be recognized as Charles's official partner, to reach the position she believed was her destined right. Now all of that had vanished. The letter slipped from her hands onto the floor. For a long while she just sat there, staring blankly into space. Then unusual tears began to fall. She wept not for Charles, nor for the family that had been shattered, but for herself and the dream that had died. But now everything had slipped away. The letter fell from her hands onto the floor. For a long time she just sat there, staring into space. Then unusual tears began to fall. She cried not for Charles or the family that had been torn apart, but for herself and the dream that had died. That night, standing before the mirror, the woman who looked back was no longer a powerful queen, but a 78-year-old woman with empty eyes and a wrinkled face. Camilla's resilience had completely collapsed. She shut the door to her room and refused to see anyone. The palace, once her throne, had become a prison. Her dream of power didn't just slip away, it turned to ashes. She wasn't exiled to a distant land, nor publicly humiliated. The harshest punishment she faced was to live the rest of her life in emptiness and under the disdain of her own family. Although her actions deserved imprisonment, this punishment was even more severe. Camilla had to live in solitude, consumed by anger and contempt. Her story ended in complete failure, her malicious ambitions shattered, leaving only an old woman staring into the mirror, wondering had she ever truly won anything. What do you think about the Royal Council's decision? Was that punishment fair for what Camilla did? If not, what would you consider a more just penalty? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more compelling stories. And remember to click on the next video on your screen. You're going to love it. This is purely for reference purposes, only based on hypotheses and unverified rumors, public speculation. Let's discuss it from an objective analytical perspective. At 7:48 this morning, a moment marked the end of an era and the beginning of an irreversible turning point. Prince William, heir to the throne, broke the silence with a decisive move. The dynasty closed, all hope of reconciliation shattered. Why did William act so forcefully? Was it to protect his family or a declaration of the dynasty's survival? We will explore these history-changing decisions right here at Windsor. Comment 1 if you support 0 if you find it unappealing. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming power secrets. Let's begin. Instantly, the world held its breath. For the first time in decades, major broadcasters paused their programming to air what veteran experts described as unprecedented. No more vague diplomatic rhetoric, no more appeasement delays. This message was personal and utterly decisive from William. From London to Los Angeles, from bustling newsrooms to millions of individual screens, a new reality had been established. In the United States, where royal narratives are always viewed through a deeply ingrained cultural lens, this declaration was seen as a complete redefinition of the structure of the monarchy. This was no longer a dialogue, but an affirmation of the institution's future. What surprised observers most was the absence of phrases like "at this time" or "in the present circumstances." In the dictionary of the monarchy this morning, only the concept of permanence remained. For those who had witnessed the crises of the past, William's steadfastness offered a thought-provoking clarity. Throughout the years, William had chosen to step back, allowing the institution to speak through carefully crafted statements. But today he personally signed the final chapter of a long-running controversy. This act was not merely an official announcement. It was a declaration by a future monarch of unity and the protection of the institution's core values. What prompted a man known for his meticulous planning like William to take this extraordinary step? The answer lies not in a single event, but in the accumulation of subtle shifts throughout the autumn of 2024. When diplomacy is no longer sufficient to maintain balance, and when spiritual values are put to the test beyond their limits, decisiveness becomes the only tool to protect stability. This is not an impulsive reaction, but the result of a profound process of reflection on responsibility and legacy. The door has been locked, and the key has been handed over to history. It is the culmination of a silent observation process, when the limits of tolerance have finally been reached. Throughout the latter part of the year, an unusual pattern began to emerge, making Catherine unable to remain silent any longer. Whenever a significant initiative is launched or a community mission is launched, opposing streams of information immediately emerge. These articles don't come from transparent sources, but are hidden behind vague concepts like insider voices or anonymous observers. However, the timing of their release paints a picture of calculated intervention rather than random news. In a private conversation, Catherine pointed out the existence of an invisible hand pulling the strings behind these upheavals. This was no longer a natural flow of media, but a strategic campaign to obscure her devoted efforts. Witnessing his wife's devotion being undermined by deliberate manipulation, a new resolve formed within William. Meanwhile, King Charles was also facing his own challenges. He realized that the monarchy's valuable resources were being disproportionately wasted dealing with misinformation from distant sources. Legal experts and security teams had to work continuously to assess the risks from inflammatory content in the digital space. Meanwhile, the monarch himself was prioritizing his recovery, which demanded tranquility rather than relentless pressure. He felt caught between family affection and the responsibility of protecting the stability of the institution. Hope for harmony was real, but systemic paralysis was unacceptable. The real turning point came from a secret national security meeting. Authorities identified an organized pattern of activity targeting Catherine. These information campaigns transcended the boundaries of ordinary criticism to become a real threat to the credibility of the monarchy in the digital age. William received the report in a highly secure setting. Each page revealed a harsh truth about the origins of these psychological attacks. A significant proportion of the negative activities were confirmed to be linked to extremist groups from the opposition, turning William's suspicions into an alarming reality. The challenge extended beyond national borders. Delicate but serious questions began to emerge from major international partners. Strategic allies in Washington and Ottawa began expressing concern about the stability of the monarchy. They needed assurance that the symbol of the monarchy was strong enough to continue its role as a reliable diplomatic partner. This news came as a major shock to William. Understanding that the future of the monarchy rested on trust and global consistency, he knew that silence was no longer an option. His statement was not an immediate reaction, but a necessary act of self-defense to protect the institution's legacy from the storm. The upheavals involving members of the monarchy abroad were no longer mere entertainment news. They had now become a factor undermining the nation's soft power on the international stage. Princess Anne, with her practical and insightful vision, delivered a crucial wake-up call to William. She asserted that no one can protect everyone. At a certain point, a leader must choose between a constantly destabilizing individual and an institution serving millions. As winter descended upon London, William found himself caught in a maze of undeniable evidence. Psychological attacks on his family, the declining health of the monarch, and diplomatic risks threatened the nation's standing. The time for hope had ended, giving way to an era of permanent divisions. The first fundamental decision came from Princess Anne during a private meeting at Windsor. In the quiet space of knowledge and history, she did not resort to conciliatory words. She stressed that this institution required formal written and legal boundaries, not vague promises or expectations. Anne argued that without absolute clarity, all future interactions would turn into endless negotiations. Every silence would be interpreted as weakness, and every action would be dissected to search for hidden intentions. Please leave a comment with the number. If you admire Princess Anne's practical vision and determination in defending the institution, please leave a comment with the number. If you think she's too rigid and lacks the necessary empathy of a family, don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel. Support us now, and make sure you don't miss our next decoding videos about the calculated moves of the royal family. Your interaction is what motivates us to uncover the truths hidden behind the walls of history. The only way to break the vicious cycle was to establish a new reality, a relationship with clear and public boundaries. William deeply understood that proactive clarity was the only weapon to eradicate ambiguity. The second decision stemmed from a comprehensive risk assessment by the palace legal team. The results of this investigation were truly alarming. If the ambiguity continued, the monarchy would face dangerous constitutional and security vulnerabilities. Experts warned of legal risks from unofficial statements and conflicts of commercial interest, damaging the institution's reputation. The longer the ambiguity persists, the greater the vulnerability of the institution. William understood that maintaining hope for reconciliation in a lack of transparency was essentially a far riskier gamble than a definitive split. The final, crucial element came from high-level diplomatic reports. International partners needed firm confidence that the monarchy was a symbol of stability and centralization. Prolonged internal turmoil had begun to erode the confidence of public opinion leaders and policymakers in allied nations. The issue has transcended the realm of a family conflict to become a major foreign policy concern. The government needs a decisive solution to maintain national prestige. William realizes that if he cannot manage stability within his own home, global partners will question his ability to shoulder greater responsibilities in the future. All these pressures have converged, leading to the historic declaration at 7:48 this morning, a drastic action to protect the future of the monarchy. When personal turmoil transforms into complex political problems, silence is no longer a safe haven. The final and most instinctive decision doesn't come from dry reports, but from William's heart. Throughout the final months of the year, he witnessed Catherine facing the storms of public opinion with a proud serenity. He saw his father shouldering the unresolved family rifts and saw the children growing up under the scrutinizing gaze of the outside world. At that threshold, William realized a harsh truth. The responsibility of protecting the peace of his wife and children had to take precedence over any fragile hopes of reconciliation. In a moment of quiet reflection, he admitted to Catherine that he could not repair what was broken and that continuing to try would only further hurt those he was obligated to protect. A historic declaration is never built on a blank slate. It is the convergence of four powerful forces. Princess Anne provided a sharp strategic framework. The legal team established a solid textual foundation. The Foreign Office affirmed the necessity of international standing. And finally, it was William himself who infused it with an unwavering personal resolve. As December approached, the question was no longer whether to act, but how to execute the most decisive separation. On the evening of December 1st, a small strategic council convened in his private study at Windsor. Though the fire still burned in the fireplace, the winter chill seemed to seep through the cracks in the doors, weighing down the space like a tangible entity. William arrived first, carrying a draft he had meticulously crafted over 48 hours. Every phrase had to carry the precise weight he intended, for it would shape his entire reign. King Charles entered, bearing the appearance of someone burdened by immense sorrow. In his eyes, one could see the pain of a father witnessing the irreparable breakdown of blood ties. Following him was Princess Anne, who firmly believed that an institution could only survive if it protected itself from constant upheaval. Emotions, however intense, should not paralyze the actions necessary to maintain stability. Catherine's arrival changed the atmosphere in the room. Although she rarely participated in strategic meetings, William needed her presence this time. She understood perfectly well that every decision tonight would directly affect the very lifeblood of their family. William began with a straightforward and decisive manner. He asserted that this was the final decision, with no room for reconsideration, no turning back as emotions cooled. After considering all options from reconciliation to gradually establishing boundaries, he concluded that the current ambiguity was the seed of perpetual instability. As the draft was passed around and silence fell, Catherine spoke in a soft but powerful voice filled with compassion. She reminded them of the profound pain this decision would inflict on those on the other side of the border. It was the moment when royal duty and human emotion clashed most intensely, marking an irreversible turning point. William confronted the harsh reality head-on. He understood the pain of separation, but he also understood that maintaining a state of limbo would only further hurt those closest to him and weaken the foundation entrusted to him by the king. He could not continue to gamble on a distant possibility of reconciliation while neglecting his responsibility to protect the present. King Charles, in a moment of choked emotion, likened this to closing a door that should have been left slightly ajar. But William responded with the steadfastness of a true leader. That door was no longer a passageway, but a gap through which instability could enter. He closed it not with anger, but with the necessary composure for all to move forward together. Princess Anne reminded us of a harsh truth: an institution cannot be led by vague hopes of mending emotional wounds. William was putting his education into practice, prioritizing organizational stability over personal feelings, even if it meant leaving silent scars. Catherine, with her keen insight and empathy, affirmed that the language of this statement was entirely transparent. It contained no aggression. It simply established a new reality. When King Charles concluded the meeting with his trust in his son's judgment, the burden of history seemed to have been transferred. The communiqué will be released at 7:48 a.m. tomorrow, ending any lingering doubts. Precisely at 7:48 a.m. on December 2nd, the official statement was released from Kensington Palace, permanently sealing all avenues of return. In California, amidst the dim twilight, the message arrived like a silent shockwave. It was not the language of bureaucracy, but a direct verdict from an older brother. Silence enveloped the space as this reality was revealed. An insurmountable line had been drawn, a decisive judgment whose intensity no one could have foreseen. Meanwhile, in London, the monarchy's media and legal apparatus operated with absolute efficiency to handle the waves of public opinion from the very first hour. Lara Flynn. Boyle's journey is not merely a story of physical transformation, but a valuable lesson in the philosophy of limits on the path to pursuing beauty. It shows us that in the quest to reclaim youth, one can inadvertently lose the most precious part of their identity. Her story offers a profound lesson in accepting and cherishing the traces of time, for they are what give a person depth. Lara serves as a reminder that the pinnacle of beauty does not lie in flawless perfection, but in authenticity and harmony with the natural order. Once a dazzling icon of intelligence and allure in working girl Melanie Griffith entered the world of fame, carrying all the expectations of the public. Yet behind her high-profile marriages and the scrutinizing gaze of Hollywood, an invisible fear of fading began to grow. To maintain her position among other leading ladies and famous husbands, she inadvertently entered a relentless race with beauty-preserving methods. Decades of continuous interventions gradually built an artificial. This was no longer a pause or a lingering sulk. It was an end. By midday, the silence from the palace had become the final answer. The matter was officially closed. The future of the woman across the ocean would now unfold entirely separate from the orbit of the monarchy. William, having made the most difficult decision of his leadership career, had charted a new course for decades to come. As the winter light faded over London, a new reality began to envelop Meghan Markle's life. The illusion of a tomorrow where time could heal the cracks had completely vanished. William had not merely closed a door, he had declared that path no longer existed. Instead of running away, Melanie Griffith chose a path of courage few in Hollywood dare to take, acknowledging past mistakes and embarking on a journey to rescue her face. She sought out top specialists to undo the excessive interventions, striving to reclaim the natural fragments that remained. While she could not turn back the clock to her youthful beauty, the positive changes that followed stand as a testament to extraordinary resilience. Her story serves as a valuable case study showing that aesthetic pursuits are not a one-way street, and there is no longer any opportunity to reposition oneself as someone who can return when circumstances change, nor any suggestion of reconciliation if the organization accepts flexibility. The future king has turned his judgment into a historical document, something no media campaign can reverse. This is a conflict between modern individual vision and immutable traditional structures. When an individual refuses to compromise and an institution does not collapse, a definitive separation is inevitable. Looking back at the whole affair, we realize that sometimes the kindest thing to do is not to cling to false hope, but to accept reality. Instead of a fulfilling outcome as promised by glowing advertisements, she inadvertently became a victim of techniques lacking the necessary empathy and medical expertise. A harsh intervention on her facial structure caused the once-admired architectural beauty to collapse, leaving irreversible marks on her skin and natural features. By 2026, reflecting on Elsa's journey, one cannot help but be stunned by the extreme contrast. Though she still lives in wealth and prestige, her face has become a mask of sorrow where the flexible expression, the quiet pain of a woman unable to recognize herself in the mirror, is a modern tragedy where material wealth cannot compensate for the loss of personal identity. Elsa Patton's story is not merely a celebrity headline, it is a powerful educational lesson on the limits of aesthetic intervention. It reminds us that behind every promised miracle lie risks capable of permanently stripping a person of confidence and happiness. Elsa courageously shared her suffering as a warning to the world: cherish the harmony of nature and remain mindful of the temptations of art. With the door permanently sealed, a new, mysterious chapter officially opens. Is this verdict a necessary liberation, or merely the beginning of new storms? The ultimate truth always lies in the hidden corners that history has yet to uncover. Will this decisive action truly bring peace to the dynasty? Share your thoughts in the comments below, so we can unravel the mystery together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to avoid missing more shocking cases and hidden truths. Thank you for joining us. In the shadows of royal power, deep secrets still exist. But when the fortress of silence begins to crack, the whole world witnesses a grueling battle between duty and life itself. The story of Princess Catherine is not just about health. It is a struggle between eternity and true humanity. One that has forever changed the image of the crown. Do you sympathize with this courage? Comment 1 if you admire it, or 0 if you have a different perspective. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can explore the mystery together. There are moments when time itself seems to stand still, when even the most solid stone walls of history cannot hold back the ripples of change. Buckingham Palace has just released a message that has shaken the hearts of millions. Gone are the rigid formalities of royal protocol. King Charles and Prince William appeared together in a rare moment of shared empathy, opening up about a profoundly challenging chapter in the life of Princess Catherine. For months, speculation hung over London like a thick fog. Yet when the truth was finally revealed, its weight surpassed all imagination. As the world holds its breath, the British royal family is confronting a stark reality, one where titles and crowns offer no shield against the unforgiving laws of nature. Before we unravel the deeper meanings of this turning point for the future of the monarchy, join us by subscribing to stay updated with the most authentic and insightful information. In a rare display of unity, the monarch and his heir stood side by side. On their faces, there was no trace of their usual majesty, only the weight of compassion. For an institution that has long held composure as its guiding principle, this moment marked a painful break from tradition. The words were spoken softly, yet their impact felt like a psychological earthquake. This was not an ordinary medical update. It was a vulnerable confession that shattered the illusion of perfection the palace had carefully upheld for over a century. William, long known for his steely resolve, now appeared with an emotion he could scarcely conceal. His voice, though still measured, carried undertones of uncertainty. King Charles, in a moment that transcended his role as sovereign, referred to Catherine as the heart of the family. This was not merely the voice of a monarch. It was the voice of a father watching a loved one endure the storm. That very sincerity sparked an emotional wave that resonated across the globe. From the flickering candles at Windsor to messages sent across oceans, the world is sharing a solemn, reverent silence. Everything has changed because deep down, we all understand this truth. Behind those gilded iron gates lies a quiet battle for peace. But what led to this heartbreaking turning point? To grasp the reality, we must turn back time to the moment when the first cracks began to appear. Princess Catherine's absence was initially regarded as nothing more than a routine period of rest. Yet as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the silence took on the weight of unease. There were no casual photographs, no radiant smiles before the camera's hallmarks of Catherine's public presence. Her complete withdrawal from public life raised a pressing question: was something beyond control unfolding behind the scenes? Even the closest security staff and aides were enveloped in an atmosphere of strict discretion. Privacy was no longer a choice. It had become the final fortress protecting what mattered most. When official engagements were canceled without clear explanation, and when representatives began relying on vague language, the public understood they were witnessing something unprecedented. An anonymous staff member once remarked, "Things are not as simple as what's written in the press." Now, as part of the truth has come to light, we realize that the greatest value lies not in leaked information, but in the inner strength of a human being facing adversity. Catherine, the woman long associated with grace, is writing a new chapter not through visibility, but through quiet courage. Everything has entered a new chapter, one that cannot be reversed. The image of an unchanging, flawless royal family is gradually giving way to a different reality. Behind the velvet curtains of the palace, truth is no longer something that can be neatly packaged and controlled. As the outside world begins to connect the scattered pieces, it becomes clear that this is not merely a delay in a recovery journey. It is the transformation of a legend where royal splendor is being forced to confront vulnerability and deeply human fears. Now, Prince William carries more than the weight of a future king's responsibility. In the shadows of the long corridors of Adelaide Cottage, he finds himself at the very center of the storm as a husband. Sources close to him describe a profound psychological shift. The familiar calm has been replaced by a constant undercurrent of worry. For the first time in his life, diplomatic rules and courtly protocol have become meaningless. This is not a media crisis to be managed. It is a battle to protect the woman he loves most. A battle in which political power has no voice. William, trained from childhood to restrain emotion, now finds himself surrounded by a sense of helplessness before fate. On sleepless nights gazing out the window, he is not searching for political solutions, but for a fragile glimmer of hope within the frightening stillness of the house. The breaking point did not come from natural events, but from a collision between two worlds. On one side, an advisory machine steadfast in its belief in strategic silence to preserve stability. On the other, the heart of someone living through the crisis. Heated debates erupted behind closed doors. Media experts worried about the turbulence of public opinion, but William saw something far more important: the dignity of truth. In a moment that defied all precedent, a private message was sent to the monarch, brief yet resolute. She deserves more than silence. It was a declaration marking the end of an era of forced mystery. William no longer cared about staged photographs or hollow press statements. His only concern was the woman who had walked beside him through life's highs and lows. As tensions reached their peak, King Charles, long known for his extreme caution, made a decision that would completely change the course of events. After witnessing his son's quiet pain and his daughter-in-law's resilience, every remaining barrier of protocol dissolved. In a historic meeting at Clarence House, the king affirmed, "No more hiding. Let the world see the strength of perseverance." This step marked a deeply human shift in power. After a brief private visit to Catherine's hospital bedside, the raw truth reached the heart of the head of the monarchy. What he saw was not a symbol recovering according to plan, but a soul striving to make its way through the valley of life's most grueling trials. When the king left Windsor with a pale face and a heavy spirit, the entire royal household understood the whispers were over, and a new reality had begun. The silence that followed was no longer meant to conceal, but a silence born of respect for a profoundly personal and courageous battle. Everything has truly changed, and history will remember this moment as proof that beneath the royal cloak, the heart remains the most powerful guide of all. In the quiet halls of the palace, an unprecedented struggle for power erupted, but not over the throne, rather over the truth. As cautious voices sought to wrap the situation in vague statements, King Charles exercised a rare prerogative, the decisiveness of a father. For the first time, he set aside all diplomatic convention in favor of transparency. This action not only sent shockwaves through those closest to the palace, but also healed a silent fracture. Charles and William, two generations of monarchy, found common ground in shared pain. They were no longer acting as king and heir, but as two men protecting a world threatened by an invisible adversity. Every word in the forthcoming message was weighed not to preserve appearances, but to honor the dignity of a mother and a wife fighting with resilience. Yet what the world is about to learn is only the tip of the iceberg. Confidential materials and first-hand accounts from insiders reveal a chilling reality: Catherine's trial did not begin recently. Signs of instability had already surfaced in late 2023, hidden behind troubling blood test results. For months, the truth was concealed beneath a veneer of stability. Why did the palace keep it secret? The answer lies in a harsh royal philosophy: the symbol must not be allowed to waver. Even as pain became part of daily life, Catherine continued to appear with a radiant smile, chair meetings, and lead educational initiatives. It was a silent sacrifice, where an iron will struggled to overpower physical exhaustion. Behind the stage lights, the velvet curtains concealed her weakest moments. There were times Catherine collapsed backstage at charity events, yet the swift motion of security and media transformed them into ordinary migraines. William witnessed it all, from worrying weight loss to long, sleepless nights. He pleaded with her to stop, but Catherine, bound by unwavering devotion to duty, refused. Catherine is not only battling adversity, she is fighting to uphold faith for an entire monarchy. This quiet sacrifice between the dazzling stage lights and moments of collapse behind the scenes paints a portrait of a figure far beyond ordinary protocol. Comment 2. If you feel moved and admire the steel will of this crown-bearing woman. Or comment 5 if you have a different reflection on the price she has had to pay. Don't forget to like and subscribe now to continue uncovering these inspiring archival stories and never miss another heart-stirring tale. The tension between an unfallible symbol and a human growing ever more fragile pushed the royal family into a precarious position. Senior aides feared that if both the king and the princess showed weakness simultaneously, the illusion of institutional strength would collapse. They chose silence to protect the throne, but forgot the price of isolation. Catherine's story is not merely the tale of a royal. It is a lesson on the limits of humanity when faced with a higher duty. As cameras prepared to capture historic footage, the world would come to understand sometimes the greatest strength does not lie in the crown atop one's head, but in the courage to face the truth, even when that truth has the power to change everything we thought we knew about a monarchy. For the sake of stability, a curtain of secrecy was drawn. Catherine accepted it, trusting that these trials were only a brief chapter in her journey of recovery. Yet time and the laws of nature wait for no arrangement. As the palace prepared to speak, reality had already moved beyond their control. The most loyal aides began to question, is silence still golden, or is it slowly eroding trust between an age-old institution and the public? William, torn between his duty as a prince and his heart as a husband, began to realize that the fortress of secrets was becoming a prison of pain. The throne built on influence and image now faced a cruel test of sincerity. Then, without any staged ceremony or coordinated press release, Catherine made a move that shook the nation. In a simple setting, a garden where the laughter of children once echoed, she chose to face the world directly. In just 94 seconds, the royal veil was completely pierced by a heartbreaking honesty. There was no royal glamour, no shield of advisors, only a woman speaking about the trials of her life with absolute clarity. She began with words of gratitude, but it was what came next that made millions of hearts stop. Every word Catherine spoke swept through the silence like a storm. She did not dwell on technical details, but spoke of family resilience and the right to retain a private space amid the chaos. Yet beneath that composure lay a profound emotion, a confession so sincere that it was clear this was not merely a medical update, but a deeply human sharing about the fragility of life. The world's response was an immense wave of emotion. From national leaders to ordinary citizens, everyone found connection through shared pain. Spontaneous candlelight vigils and quiet prayers were no longer for a title, but for a mother and wife, standing at the center of a storm, choosing truth over tradition. That moment has forever changed the image of the monarchy. The acknowledgement of vulnerability shattered the cold, distant facade, revealing the raw beauty of truth. Behind the scenes, emotional wounds remained. William, in an unrestrained moment at a public event, shed tears before the crowd, an unprecedented image in modern history. Even the press, usually relentless in pursuing every detail, chose to step back out of respect for this silence. They understood that this was no longer news to dissect, but a journey of the soul unfolding in real time. The monarchy has now transformed. It is no longer defined solely by titles or lineage, but by the courage to live authentically and embrace one's true humanity. Catherine's story is not just one of survival. It is a lesson on the cost of silence and the power of sincerity. She did what no royal symbol before her had dared reveal: the fragility beneath a radiant cloak. It is precisely this openness that has turned Catherine from a princess into a guiding soul, forcing a palace, once a fortress of secrets, to move in rhythm with her heartbeat. Yet while the world honors Catherine's bravery behind the heavy oak doors, another battle quietly ignites. This is not merely a fight against illness, but a struggle shaping the future of a 1,000-year-old institution. In strategic meeting rooms, the air is thick with calculation. Harsh questions arose. Who would represent the monarchy if Catherine's radiance receded? Old alliances fractured, and new schemes began to take root. Not everyone looked in the same direction, and not every heart within the castle beat in rhythm with the woman resting. As the reality of Catherine's absence became a daunting prospect, conflicting viewpoints collided. Some voices sought to fill the void with traditional rituals, aiming to maintain the monarchy's public presence. But this intervention met a steel wall of loyalty. Princess Anne and the Duchess of Edinburgh rose as guardians of Catherine's legacy. They understood that hastily replacing a symbol was not only a betrayal of familial bonds, but also an act that could destroy public trust. To them, Catherine was the last thread capable of mending a monarchy facing the fractures of the age. At the center of the storm, Prince William stood firm like a lighthouse amid turbulent seas. He rejected all contingency plans, all possible replacements, no matter how minor. To William, acknowledging a plan B would be tantamount to surrendering to fate, and that was something he would never do. His cold decisiveness before the advisors sent a powerful message. Catherine is not a pawn on the political chessboard. She is the soul of this household. Despite the crushing pressure to maintain the continuity of the institution, and despite drafts of task restructuring already laid out on the table, William chose to place his trust in the miracle of willpower. Then, just as the darkness of doubt loomed heaviest, a ray of light pierced the night. A new message emerged, not from aides but from Catherine herself. With heartfelt sincerity, she shared what once seemed impossible. There were signs of triumph in the battle. Her illness had abated. Light had returned to the eyes of the mother, the wife, and the future queen. She spoke of gratitude, of resilience forged through the darkest hours. Treatment had borne fruit, and life once again asserted itself against the cruelty of fate. Though the joyous news had arrived, shadows of the past left profound lessons. This crisis revealed a truth. The prestige of a monarchy does not lie in stone walls or noble titles, but in the human connection between its leaders and the people. Catherine has triumphed not only over illness, but also over outdated rules redefining the value of the crown. A new chapter is unfolding where strength comes not from mystery, but from sincerity and compassion. News of Catherine's remission spread across the world like a wave of quiet jubilation. The media called it a miracle, and social media erupted with prayers. Yet for Catherine, this was not a blazing victory anthem. She faced this reality with the insight of someone who had walked through the valley of darkness, not as a destination, but as a steadfast step on a long path full of uncertainties. Though now stable, the mark of stormy months still lingers in every gesture. Her voice, though steadier, carries the breath of someone who has touched the very limits of endurance. Catherine's candidness about her recovery process has received wholehearted support from the professional community. 6 Within the palace, a new order had been established. Prince William, with devoted protection, set strict boundaries for his wife's return. Catherine reappeared still graceful, but carrying a more subdued and wise beauty. She no longer tried to force herself to shine. She simply existed, and that presence, though more delicate than before, held the power to ignite hope stronger than any speech. A moment touched the hearts of humanity, the image of Catherine walking hand in hand with her children across the school grounds. It was not a royal ritual, but a wordless message of life continuing. Beyond the palace walls, beyond noble titles, she was first and foremost a mother fighting to preserve her children's peace amid the storm. Yet behind that calm tension within the palace remained. Unanswered questions about the future still lingered. What would happen if darkness returned? These doubts were no longer brushed aside. They became catalysts for decisions that could reshape the foundation of an entire monarchy. King Charles, standing beside the heir, acknowledged a profound truth. Catherine's courage had redefined the image of royalty. She achieved what decades of protocol and ceremony could not, restoring humanity to the monarchy. Now power no longer lay in displays of authority, but in the resilience to endure the world's scrutiny while battling the fiercest personal wars. Immutable rules were quietly being adjusted. The palace no longer tried to maintain the illusion of eternal strength. They learned to accept vulnerability as part of evolution. Catherine's legacy would not be confined to royal procedures. She placed compassion at the heart of every action. Quiet visits, advocacy for mental health, and early childhood education now carried a more vivid meaning. She taught the world that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it is the whisper of a mother holding on to what is most precious. In the darkest days, she is said to have written private letters to George, Charlotte, and Louis, messages for the future if she could not return. Whether or not those letters were ever opened, they became part of the legend of a woman who stood at the edge and chose to fight. Catherine did not merely cling to her role. She turned her pain into purpose. Her battle may not be over, but her strength has redrawn the map of the monarchy's destiny. The world will never see her the same way again, for they have glimpsed the portrait of a queen in spirit, a woman who reminded us that even in adversity, grace and determination can create miracles. Catherine's journey is not merely the story of a title or a crown, but an epic of willpower, sincerity, and the cost of compassion. She taught us that the greatest strength sometimes does not lie in majesty, but in the courage to be vulnerable and honest with the world. A new chapter of royal history has begun, a chapter written in humanity rather than in rigid ritual. At this point, we want to hear from you. How do you feel about Catherine's inspiring journey of revival? Do you think this humanization could help the British monarchy remain resilient amid the challenges of the modern era? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We truly value every perspective. If this video has brought you special emotions or valuable insights, don't forget to hit like to show support for our content team. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss in-depth documentaries about some of the world's most influential figures. Thank you for watching and see you in the next videos. In the world of symbols and heritage, sometimes silence carries more weight than 1,000 words. We are witnessing a historical split, not just within a family, but within the very concept of power in this new era. On one side is the dazzling light of the media, where personal stories are woven into focal points. On the other is the stillness of London's ancient walls, where chess pieces are being set for a future longer than any television contract. Numerous observers suggest that Prince William is exhibiting the demeanor of a chief architect of the future. Instead of reacting to the onslaught of public opinion, he chooses to strengthen the foundations of the institution. The question now is no longer, will it happen, but when is the optimal time? Redefining titles is not merely an individual act, but a symbolic restructuring. In an era of transparency, possessing a title is no longer seen as an immutable privilege, but a responsibility tied to genuine dedication. Across the ocean, we see a familiar motif, the clamor of press releases and the relentless pursuit of prominence in the global news flow. However, there is a systemic truth that few mentioned titles within a dynasty are not mere ornaments to be possessed. They are the very breath of tradition. When direct blood ties are no longer the sole basis, the distinction between heir and companion becomes more pronounced than ever in ancient ceremonial rules. While the world is preoccupied with analyzing dramatic interviews and memoirs in London, a new blueprint for the monarchy is emerging. These are not petty debates. This is the transformation of an institution to adapt to the 21st century. With a single signature, the structure of a millennia-old heritage can be rewritten, discarding elements no longer relevant to safeguard the overall existence. Will individual freedom or family duty prevail on this chessboard of power? The answer lies in patience, for in the game of dynasties, the winner is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the last one standing when the spotlight fades. While the outside world is awash in sensational headlines behind the solid oak doors of Kensington and Clarence House, a different script is being rewritten. No cameras, no bombastic pronouncements, just strategic records and quiet discussions that have dragged on for years. To understand what is truly happening, we must look into the intellectual divide between the two generations of top leadership, the current crown holder and his successor. King Charles, as a conciliatory father and monarch, always believed in second chances. His philosophy was one of tolerance, an attempt to mend rifts with afternoon tea and patience. He saw the prodigal sons, but Prince William saw the systemic risks. William arrived at a far more stoic and realistic conclusion. Institutions cannot exist based on emotions. In the eyes of the successor, protecting the millennia-old heritage is the ultimate priority, transcending all personal feelings. What is being quietly built is not a plan for revenge, but rather a self-defense mechanism. William understood that when a name tied to traditional values is used as a commercial tool, from podcasts to book covers, its sanctity is eroded. The precedent was there. What had happened to previous members of the family was proof of the system's resolve. This wasn't revenge, but a revolution, necessary surgery to ensure the purity of future leadership. There was a pivotal moment in those private conversations where William bluntly pointed out that ill-timed benevolence could become a vulnerability for widespread instability. He believed that to protect the monarchy from media attacks and destructive revelations, they could not continue to remain silent in the old ways. This contrast created tremendous pressure on all parties involved. Across the ocean, resistance was understandable, for when symbols of power are shaken, the structure of personal influence crumbles with them. The history of monarchies has always been a process of purification for survival. William is playing a game of chess where he has already moved many steps ahead. This is a battle between one side that wants to preserve unity through affection and the other that wants to maintain dignity through discipline. Ultimately, time will tell, can an institution survive if it does not dare to let go of the parts that are no longer compatible. We are drawing closer to the point where the line between family unity and the survival of an institution becomes clearer than ever. King Charles, with the heart of a father, sees the cracks that need to be filled with kindness. He sees individuals' memories and hopes for reconciliation. But on the opposite side, Prince William sees a system error. In the successor's thinking, this is not a matter of emotion, but a model being exploited, eroding the foundations built over thousands of years of history. Construction workers. Construction. William isn't waiting for the future. He's shaping it right now. Behind the velvet curtains lies a strategic council, not a group of fleeting crisis management experts, but constitutional historians and masters of political science. They are the ones who understand the concept to its core. Authority. Their mission to draft a comprehensive framework to protect the monarchy from the upheavals of the new era. This wasn't an immediate response to